Hello, and thanks for joining us on UP Responds. I'm Jennifer Hales with UPTV. It will soon be time to commemorate our nation's greatest heritage. Many people celebrate the 4th of July with a barbecue and fireworks celebration. As you begin planning your festivities, we'd like to help you understand the University Place fireworks laws and give you some great prevention information so that you can make the 4th of July a safe holiday for you, your family, and your neighborhood. Today's show is designed to arm residents with good information so they can discharge legal fireworks safely or live among neighbors that choose to do so. I want to welcome my guests for this first segment here, Police Chief of University Place, Mike Blair, and Communications Officer Dave Loverack from South Sound 911. Thank you so much both for joining me.
Of course. Good to be here.
Chief, it's no secret we have a divided public about fireworks. Can you talk a little bit about the ordinance regulations?
Sure. University Place has restricted ordinance for discharge of fireworks on the 4th of July. You can only light off fireworks between 9 a.m. and midnight on the 4th of July itself. You can begin to purchase fireworks on June 28th at noon, all the way until 9 p.m. on the 4th of July.
What about age restrictions?
In order to possess or purchase or discharge fireworks, you have to be 16 years of age and above. Under 16, you have to have direct parent supervision.
Okay, that's really important, I think, for folks to know, because I know our youngsters get pretty excited, particularly those right around the age of 16, maybe just below, get excited about fireworks. So it is important to pay attention to that. You're 16.
Yes.
Where can fireworks be legally discharged?
Private property.
Okay.
With permission.
Okay.
Our parks are not a place to light off fireworks. It's actually a criminal offense to do so. And we want you to have water readily available, and we want you to pick up after yourself, of course, the next day or
Sure.
that night.
Yes, yeah, and I think in our next segment of the show, we'll have someone from the State Fire Marshal's office who will be here to kind of talk about some of those things. So that's really great that you touched on that. One of the things I think we see a lot in our department during that time of year leading up to the 4th of July is a little bit of a disconnect between people who enjoy fireworks and their communication with their neighbors. What would you say about really coming to some understanding in your neighborhood of what to expect? You know, do your neighbors that you live right next to and across the street choose to use fireworks legally every year? What would you say about that and the importance of maybe having some dialogue with them beforehand?
Well, I think you and I always talk to homeowner associations about communication with your neighbors. We can't solve all your problems. If you have issues with your neighbors from prior years, we ask you to reach out to them and say, hey, this year, can we work together and have some kind of cooperation together? And that's what we talk about in all areas. With 2 police officers working in our city, we really depend upon our neighborhoods to kind of take care of themselves at times.
Absolutely. And one of the wonderful things about working in University Place is that cul-de-sac mentality, that we really do see that in so many other aspects of just quality of life, that it's really, we hope, and it's our, that's our message to the public, is to really just use that same principle when talking about fireworks. So talk a little bit about, you mentioned it just a minute ago about the 2 during the 4th of July. Talk a little bit about what you do for staffing during the 4th of July season.
So beginning on the day they're sold, we begin to add bodies to the street, usually swing shift into graveyard hours when the sun goes down and people want to start lighting off fireworks. Of course, it is illegal to discharge fireworks anytime outside of the 4th of July, so we begin to up our staffing as the call volumes come in, and they're specific only to fireworks enforcement, not just patrol work.
Talk a little bit about what we do in preparation for the 4th of July season. Once they go on sale, what are some of the proactive things that University Place does to sort of enhance that staffing?
Certainly. So we publish as much information as possible. We're lucky this year now to have our actually bi-weekly newspaper, and we'll publish our fireworks restrictions. We also have our repeat offenders that we've gone out to before. We mail them direct letters indicating that if they continue to do the behavior they've done in the past, they will be dealt with by us and perhaps even arrested.
And I do believe, as we look at those sheets every year, that we haven't had a lot of repeat offenders on there. And so I think that tool is working, which is wonderful. What about if you do choose to illegally discharge fireworks or discharge legal fireworks outside of the parameters? What can the folks in University Place expect?
So those officers that are specific to our fireworks enforcement will be responding to all of the calls. We'll either have a discussion with you, we perhaps will even confiscate your fireworks, and we will take people to jail for it, or write them a citation for illegal discharge.
Very good to know. And on the heels of that, as you know, every year, we have people who are just on the absolute love side of fireworks and people who are on the absolute hate side of fireworks. And so, as the enforcers of this law, it is legal for folks to shoot them off during this time frame. What would you say for those who argue for a ban on fireworks?
So many different agencies or municipalities that neighbor each other have different expectations on purchasing or selling fireworks. If you can drive 5 minutes outside of your city and purchase more fireworks, until there's better regulations on the control and sale at all levels of fireworks, it's going to be a very difficult task to enforce. Neighboring cities that neighbor University Place have bans and still have major issues with the discharge of fireworks, even though they have banned them.
Yeah, and I think that really, I know Dave's going to talk a little bit later about once that darkness falls, how difficult it is, not just for patrol, but for neighbors to know what's legal and when to call in. I mean, you could staff an officer on every census block within the city and still probably not get to everything that you had calls for.
Yeah, and many people think that anything that goes in the air is illegal. If you go to the Safe and Sane stands and you can purchase mortars that go up in the air and discharge, those are illegal, and those are illegal at the state level as well.
Right. How does University Place stack up to other communities with regard to, legal, illegal usage?
Well, there's three types of control over fireworks in the state of Washington. Most of the rural counties don't have any control over it because they don't have huge population densities. And then there's restricted use, which is kind of like University Place, outside of a true ban. The restricted cities, like we're on the very conservative side, which we only allow the discharge on the 4th of July. Some cities will allow discharges well before the 4th of July and even on the 5th of July. So we are pretty conservative with our restriction, and we only allow it on the discharge on the 4th of July itself.
Very good. Thank you so much, Chief.
Certainly.
So, Dave, the 4th of July, as I understand it, happens to be the largest call volume day for 911 non-emergency calls for the entire year. How can this be?
It is. It's the busiest day of the entire year. Statistically, it proves true every single year. And it's just a day of the year when everybody comes outside, and people that don't have a lot of social graces the whole rest of the year, that stay indoors, come outside and misbehave just as badly on the 4th of July, and you mix alcohol and fireworks into that, and you end up with a lot of calls. Our call volume just skyrockets that day.
Wow, that's, you think about all the other holidays throughout the year where you could have issues. It's amazing to me. And it really does, lend itself to our shows like this, where we really need to partner with the public and educate them ahead of time so that they understand and know what to expect.
Right. If most of the public is like me, they're not numbers people.
Right.
And so, I can tell you how many calls we get, and it's just a lot of numbers. But let me show you in a tangible way what our call volume does on the 4th of July. On a typical day, in the slowest day of the year, that would be in November, when statistically we receive about 1,300 calls a day. This is what that looks like. That's what 1,300 calls in a day looks like. On the 4th of July, we get this many more. So that is the 4th of July.
Wow.
That's the 4th of July compared to a typical day in November. It's a 328% increase. And actually, of all those calls, almost 6,000, it's 5,662 calls that we received last year on the 4th of July in 2015. And of those calls, about 2,400 of them arrived between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that's more calls than we get in a typical day.
Right, and it's so difficult to validate, talking earlier about legality versus illegal fireworks, distinguishing in the darkness of night,
Yes.
Those things. And so people are just nervous and they want to call. So let me ask you that. If someone does believe that there is illegal fireworks or somebody discharging with outside of those framework within the county, obviously, because South Sound 911 covers more than just University Place, what do you advise them to do?
Anytime that there's a situation that deserves police scrutiny, we ask people to call. If it's a life and death emergency, we want them to use 911. If it's not a life and death emergency, if it's something that doesn't rise to the level of a lights and sirens response, we ask that they call the non-emergency number. That number is 253-798-4722. It's available 24 hours a day to all of the people of University Place and throughout the county. And it rings to the same place, the same people, the very same consoles for the people that answer 911. So that's me. So the very same people that you would reach if you were to dial 911 are answering that non-emergency number. But folks that are calling should know that the 911 calls are answered first. In a 911 emergency center, you expect and want that 911 calls are answered first because they're presumably life and death emergencies. Only after every single ringing 911 call is answered do we answer the non-emergency line. So they may ring for a bit, but that's okay. Just let them ring and we will answer.
Exactly. And one of the things, given your demonstration about the volume of calls that we hear about the 4th of July, is this busy signal problems. Occasionally folks will call and use a non-emergency line and get a busy signal. What do you suggest they do?
That happens under the most extreme of circumstances, and you can expect those circumstances on the 4th of July. If that happens, if you get a busy signal, it just means that we're hammered with emergencies, as you might expect. Hang up on the busy signal and just call back. You may get a subsequent call asking if you hung up on 911, but if you get a busy signal, that's all you can do. Just hang up and call back. It's rare, but it does sometimes happen.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Dave.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Of course.
I think the information you provided today is going to be very helpful to our residents and help them have a happy, healthy, and safe 4th of July. Thank you for talking with us today. We'll be right back to talk more about fireworks safety in University Place.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Welcome back to our fireworks special on UPTV. Joining us now is Lysandra Davis, who's the Deputy State Fire Marshal from the State Fire Marshal's Office, and Dr. Jane Unbehagen, who's a veterinarian here in University Place at the Animal Care Clinic. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Lysandra. Can you talk to our public a little bit about what types of injuries you see out there related to fireworks?
Yeah. The State Fire Marshal's Office receives fireworks-related injury reports annually. We also receive fire reports as well during the firework 4th of July season. The types of injuries that the State Fire Marshal has received, the top two are burns, and that's anywhere from the 1st-degree burn up to 3rd-degree burn, and combined as well. And then the second injury is multiple injury trauma that is experienced when firework does go off close to the person that's lighting that firework.
Wow. Is there a certain demographic that you see more frequently?
It kind of is broken down by gender. The males tend to be more playful with fireworks, and so a lot of the injury reports that come in do pertain to men, 0 to 7 all the way to 36 and over. So a lot of the injuries are men, but also the overarching message that the State Fire Marshal's Office wants to put out is celebrate safely throughout the year.
Right, exactly. No matter whether you're a man or a woman or anyone, as long as you're over the age of 16.
Yes.
Right, as we learned earlier. Okay, Dr. Janey, one of the biggest issues that I see in my office of people calling our office during the season is, of course, this concern about their pets. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about what kinds of things pets will do when they start to have issues or fireworks are becoming a problem.
Well, most animals are frightened by fireworks. They're loud noises, and they can exhibit behaviors such as excessive panting, salivation. They may be pacing, uncomfortable. They can't lay down. They may be trying to hide in the house or get close to you, trying to paw at your lap, trying to get in your lap. Anything that that makes them anxious. They look anxious to you.
Okay. Yeah. And so if a pet is exhibiting those sorts of things during the season, so in other words, your pet has never done this before, maybe you've lived in another part of the country, or fireworks weren't an issue in your last neighborhood, can they just call the vet during that? The vet starts exhibiting this behavior, or the animal starts doing this, call your vet.
Yeah, they should. They should contact their veterinarian, discuss it with him. They can give them some suggestions as far as just general things they can do. The biggest thing is keeping your pet indoors.
Right.
Making sure maybe you've got a radio or a TV on to kind of muffle the sounds. You can put cotton balls in their dog's ears to try and deaden the sounds some. There's a product called a Thunder Jacket. They make them for both dogs and cats, and you can put those on. It's basically what it sounds like. It's a jacket that wraps tightly around your pet. It gives them a sense of security, and so they're not so anxious. You can also talk with your veterinarian about if you think that your pet is severely affected, to try and maybe get some medications, some sedatives, those sorts of things. But just remember that you need to have a current patient-doctor relationship with your veterinarian. So they have to have been seen within the last year for your veterinarian to be able to prescribe those medications. Right. And then make sure that you give plenty of time to allow for that to take place. In other words, don't wait for the last minute to call your vet and want them to do something right away.
Good advice.
You need to plan ahead.
Exactly.
Plan ahead for the season.
Do you see more call volume in your particular office during that time of year? Do you
Yes.
get an increase in calls? Okay.
Yes, it's a very busy time of year. People, at the first sound of a firework, they see their pet being anxious, they get concerned, and so they're calling. And so it is one of the busiest times of year as far as clients calling, wanting medications for their pets.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. It's consistent with what we see out of our office too. So let's bounce back to Lysandra for a moment and talk a little bit more now that we've covered some safety tips for animals. Let's talk about people. What kinds of safety tips would you like your public to remember, our citizens in University Place, when they're using fireworks safe and sane?
The best message that we can put out there is the be safe, be prepared, be responsible. What those mean is to be prepared, like the doctor said, make sure that you take time to have your pets secured, have them indoors. They don't like loud noises. Be prepared to have only light state legal fireworks. Also check the State Fire Marshal's website ahead of time to know what the laws are in your area, to know what if there are public displays that you can attend rather than lighting off fireworks in your neighborhood. If they're not legal, then you can always go see a public display. Be safe. Make sure that you have water on hand when you're going to be conducting those fireworks. And when you do light them, light only one at a time, and make sure that when you are lighting that one, that you move away quickly. We see a lot of the injury causes are because they're lighting multiple fireworks at one time, or because they are too close in proximity to that firework that's going off. So you want to make sure that you think these things through ahead of time, and you're cleaning up after yourself. So be responsible and report any suspicious fireworks noises to the appropriate channels. Always remember to celebrate safely.
Yes, and I think some of our earlier segment, when we talked a little bit about what's legal, one of the things that your site does just brilliantly, I know at the police department, we use it to educate our patrol people about what's legal. And you guys have really nice, colored brochures that go and show you exactly what's legal and what's illegal, so that our neighborhoods can have a really clear understanding about, if someone's celebrating legally and safely and within those restrictions, that there's nothing that we can't come out and remove the fireworks from them at that time. So I think that's really helpful if people can check your website out ahead of time, so they're very familiar with that. Would you say, is there a predominant type of firework that's involved in injuries that you see most frequently?
A lot of the fireworks that are involved in these reported fireworks-related injuries are legal fireworks. So a lot of the time it's the behavior that's used. Make sure that you're using them according to the manufacturer's guidelines, and that's going to be located on the side of the firework, letting you know how to light the firework, what distance you should be using. Don't throw fireworks up in the air that aren't intended for that purpose. It's always follow the manufacturer's instructions to a T.
Very good. Can the public go to a place and find a list of public displays? Does your office supply something like that?
Yeah, our office has a list of different documents that you can use as a reference. It's called the Celebrate Safely Kit, campaign kit, and on the website, any citizen here in Washington State can find how to celebrate safely in their community, tips, find out what fireworks are legal or illegal. There's also good information as to what's legal in my city. So University Place would be on our list.
Exactly. As we learned earlier, that is on the 4th of July only. In University Place, and so that's important for folks to know. But certainly in our newsletter publications, we'll be putting out months ahead of time. People will be able to kind of get the flavor of what's happening. And really in our city, we do have very good compliance, and so I'm really happy to report that. Before we end our segment, I wanted to give Dr. Janey an opportunity to maybe share anything else. I know we talked a little bit before on the break about poisoning and about animals ingesting those fireworks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, fireworks are toxic to pets, so especially if you have puppies that are curious, the wrapping, makes noises, they're colorful, they smell interesting. So they could have a tendency, if they're accessible, to chew on them, play with them, those sorts of things. And so if your pet does ingest any fireworks, you should contact the local emergency clinics as soon as possible. Okay. There's 2 located in our area. One is Blue Pearl, and the other one is Summit Veterinary Referral Center. And you can contact them, and they'll give you directions on how to get there and what to do for your pet.
Very good. Very good. Thank you both, Lysandra and Dr. Janey, for joining me for this second half. I think this particular piece of the show will be really helpful to our citizenry so they can have a better understanding of how to prepare for fireworks season, how to engage their neighbors, and then, of course, how to help take care of their pets. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching UP Responds on UPTV. For more information about fireworks safety, check out cityofup.com. For a list of public displays, visit wsp.wa.gov. For UPTV, I'm Jennifer Hales. Have a safe and happy Independence Day.